I'd like to welcome everybody to the May 15th Thousand Oaks City Council meeting. And could I ask you all to please rise and join me in the flag salute?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to let everybody know that Mayor Fox is on his way and he should be here any minute. Now can the city clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Gillette?
Here.
Councilmember Bill De La Pena is absent at this time. Councilmember Glancy?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Irwin?
Here.
And Mayor Fox is absent at this time.
Okay, now we have special announcements and requests for continuance. I think the city manager would like to make an announcement.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council and members of the public, I just want to introduce our new public information officer, Andrew Powers. He's standing up there at the mic. Andrew comes to us from the city of Ventura, as do a number of other employees. Andrew spent 5 years in the public information office, or the civic engagement office in Ventura, and prior to that he worked for Raleigh, North Carolina. And he is from North Carolina, graduated from North Carolina State University, so we're happy to have Andrew, and I know he's happy to be here. So council, I just wanted to introduce Andrew, and we'll even give you a chance to say hello while we're waiting for the mayor. So.
To spread all the positive things that are going on here in the city of Thousand Oaks.
Okay. Okay, and now is the time for special presentations, and we have 4 this evening. I will be coming up to the podium. All right, for our first presentation this evening, would the co-president of Havarim B'nai B'rith, Irv Crane, please join me at the podium? I would like to congratulate Havarim B'nai B'rith organization on the celebration of its 25th anniversary. Irv, would you please tell us more about the upcoming celebrations?
Madam Pro Tem, I don't even know your name, so you'll have to forgive me. I'll just call you Pro for short, okay? But not for long. Unfortunately, I'm just back from a transatlantic trip, so I'm feeling absolutely no pain, and I don't even know where I am, so bear with me. But I do want to explain what we do for the community, and we've been doing it now with 250 members, and we've been doing it for 25 years. Havarim continues to help the homeless and other needy and less fortunate people in cooperation with local service agencies such as Lutheran Social Services, Jewish Family Services, the local food bank, and the MANA organization. We are celebrating our 25th anniversary this coming week with a gala affair at the Renaissance Hotel, and it's our main fundraising activity that permits us to support youth activities in the local high school and college campuses, as well as providing 30 scholarships to deserving high school senior students. The unit has been a generous donor of aid for national and international emergencies such as Hurricanes Katrina and the Rita Relief Program and the Asian tsunami disaster relief. But most important, right now, we are being challenged in the affordable home, for affordable housing for low-income seniors. And hopefully we'll be doing that in cooperation with the Many Mansions organization. If you were to ask me what B'nai B'rith is, I would tell you it's a cross between a parrot and a tiger, meaning that you'll get a lot of talk, but it's important that you listen. Thank you very much.
Actually, Irv, could you come back up here, please? We have a special accommodation. And this is on behalf of the City Council for your 25 years, and congratulations. You do a lot of fine work in the community.
Thank you very much. Can I put my arm around it?
Jackie, that was it.
Oh. Okay.
Thank you very much. For our second presentation, we have a proclamation in honor of Older Americans Month, and I would like to introduce Harry Norkin, a longtime standing member of our community and the chair of the Council on Aging. As we all know, older Americans are an important part of our community. Senior citizens today are active, vital contributors to their families, cities, and organizations. Harry, please tell us more about the purpose of tonight's presentation.
Before I do, I would ask members of the council who are here, come with me at the stand.
So you're closer to that.
Thank you. Mayor Fox isn't here, but Mayor Pro Tem Jackie Irwin, council members, city managers, Nick, and staff, thank you for honoring older Americans through the proclamation which I accept on behalf of the Council on Aging and all of the senior citizens of this area. We are very proud of the services our city provides to the senior community, including establishment of this commission, the Global Senior Adult Center, affordable housing programs, and transportation programs that include the Kaiser Shuttle and Dial-A-Ride. Senior adults, in turn, are vital assets to this community. This is shown by the thousands of volunteer hours they have contributed in services to this community. As demographics change and population grows, with your continued support, we look forward to leading the way with programs and services for the seniors of the future. Thank you.
Proclamation on behalf of the entire City Council. Congratulations, and yes, we have a very active senior community, and you are leading the way, Mr. Norkin.
Thank you very much. We are appreciative of the city and its support. I'll send so on the end here. So that's thank you.
And can I please have Public Works Director Mark Watkins, Public Works Superintendent Bob Miller, and Assistant Analyst Jessica Craven come up? Periodically, we have the opportunity to recognize one of our outstanding city departments for their efforts, and this is one of those occasions. Tonight we are proclaiming May 20th through the 26th as National Public Works Week. I would like to take just a moment and personally thank our Public Works Department for their exceptional work. Your services affect our citizens every day, and you do a great job. Jessica, can you please tell us more about what's coming up this week?
The City of Thousand Oaks has been celebrating National Public Works Awareness Week with interactive tours of the Municipal Service Center since 1991. Each year, these tours are updated to include the latest public works technology and practices, such as stormwater pollution prevention. The number of attendees keeps increasing each year, and for the past several years, we've had over 1,500 children Be our guest, learning about what the men and women of Public Works do to serve our community. This year, we have over 2,100 children and adults already reserved for our exciting tours. I'd like to extend a special invitation to our City Council to take a tour, which starts with a ride in a Thousand Oaks Transit, clean, burning natural gas bus through a recycled water vehicle wash, then moves on to demonstrations of vehicle maintenance, welding, striping of streets, street sweeping, repairing water meters, how we televise and clean our sewer lines, fabricating signs, trimming trees, removing graffiti, beneficial insects, a special crawl through a storm drain, and the kids just love seeing the big trucks. So join us in the fun by making a reservation for a tour for next week, Tuesday through Thursday, by calling our offices at 449-2499, and you'll be able to help us celebrate National Public Works Awareness Week by meeting the Public Works employees who work hard to maintain our city's infrastructure, practice safety and sound environmental practices, and proudly serve the residents and city of Thousand Oaks.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And I have here a proclamation in honor of National Public Works Week. When we're asked to smile. Is that the last? Oh, no. We have one more presentation, and our last presentation this evening is from two of the Conejo Las Virgenes Future Foundation Youth Congress members. I would like to introduce Skip Shaver and Congress member Sabeel Munteen. Would you join me, please? I understand this year's focus is on thinking globally. Skip, tell us more about the Congress, please.
Well, really, I'm going to let Sable talk to you mostly about it, but let me just say that one of the highlights of my year is getting to work with this outstanding group of students from a cross-section of schools in the Conejo Las Virgenes areas, and they get together to brainstorm about issues that they have, things that they would like to share, problem solve, and so forth, and then they hold a conference. And we hear so many times all the things that are wrong about today's teenagers, but let me tell you, this group of teenagers and the students that they pull in for these programs, it's about how right they are about so many things, how energetic, how passionate they are about making a difference in our own community and on a global basis. So I would like to introduce to you Sable Munteen, who was chairperson of the Youth Congress for this year. Sable is a senior at Viewpoint High School, and she wants me to put in just a little plug that she was accepted at USC, and she just finished her AP exams today.
Good morning, everyone. Fight on, Trojans. First of all, as said, I was chair of Youth Congress this year, and it was a great honor to be chair. I'm very proud to have done it. Youth Congress was on March 31st from 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at Oaks Christian High School in the Disciples Chapel. And we had about 100 students and about 20 agencies from the Conejo Valley attend. And we had meetings. We started our meetings planning since December, and we brainstormed and discussed issues that were relevant to teenagers and came up with the topic outside your bubble and into the real world, which it was to discuss, to raise the awareness of our peers to those around the world who are less fortunate than we are, and to motivate students to get involved in the global community to make the quality of life better for others. During the event, we had display tables provided for the nonprofit agencies that attended, and teenagers were able to volunteer for those agencies, and participants were asked to bring canned foods for manna or small stuffed animals to donate to Operation Footprint in exchange for a chance to win prizes in a drawing held at the end of the Congress. 3 organizations presented their mission at the event: Invisible Children, Operation Footprint, and Roots of Peace. Some of them came from San Diego and even from clear across the country from Washington, D.C., so we were very proud and happy to have them there. We also had craft projects. We made blankets for My Stuff Bags Foundation, an organization that provides comfort and a message of hope to abused and neglected children entering crisis and foster care. And letters were written to U.S. senators and congressional representatives to urge them to support peace talks in Uganda. There were also vouchers of participation given to students, which verified their participation in the event and their school-offered community service hours. We had lunch donated by Thousand Oaks Kiwanis, Romeo's Pizza, and Cisco's. And after the conference, we realized that there appears to be a need for this every single year because it really gets students involved in their community and makes them aware of issues that they don't know about. And we're seeking an organization that would be willing to partner with us to produce teen volunteer fairs in the future. Lastly, I would like to thank the City of Thousand Oaks for their ongoing support of Youth Congress, and thank you for allowing me to be here and present. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sable. Now is the time for public comments.
This is the time and place for public comments. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. Any additional speakers for Agenda Item 8A, the closed public hearing regarding abandonment of Silas Avenue, shall be heard during public comments. All speakers for public hearing 8B, the CDBG action plan, will be called and heard during the public hearing. Pursuant to council standards of operation, the mayor may assist any speaker from straying into areas not within the city's jurisdiction. All speakers should be addressed to the council as a whole. Under state law, issues discussed under public comments can have no action unless listed on the agenda and may be referred to the city manager for administrative action or scheduled on a subsequent agenda. All documents for City Council and the official city record should be presented to the city clerk prior to speaking. Speakers are requested to state their name and city of residence for the record. 7 people have presented cards, and pursuant to council standards, speakers are allowed 3 minutes. The yellow light displays when you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. First 3 cards are Mr. Joe Conti, followed by June Glassmeyer, and followed by Maria DeSornis. Mr. Conti. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Joe Conti, and I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks, 32 years. I'm here to address the urgent need to expand the Global Senior Center facilities. I say urgent because since the year 2000 and now, the senior population in Thousand Oaks has increased 30%. We are now at the Senior Center experiencing from 11,000 to 14,000 a month at programs at the Senior Center. And this population growth is expected to continue till the year 2020, when it will increase 50% from the seniors today. Now, the reason I say it's urgent is because if you started the ball rolling now, it could take 5 years before actual construction begins by the time it goes through the processes. I would ask the City Council if they could appropriate a small amount of money to have an architectural firm make studies of what could be done and how much costs involved and present options. If we started that now, by the time we break ground after 5 years, if we don't address this soon, we're going to have an overwhelming problem. And also, I looked at the front of the building, and it looks like, just from looking at it, we can add 20% in the front without even disturbing the parking. But of course, an architectural firm could make the studies. And again, this is urgent. Now, it would be the equivalent to a 1,700 square foot house If you take a zero off the numbers, 1,200 to 1,400 in your house every month with some kind of programs. You could see that the senior center right now is almost maxed out. And thank you for allowing me to share this with you, and you guys are doing a good job. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Conti. June Glassmeyer, followed by Maria DeSornis, followed by Susan Poprock. Good evening.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Fox and City Council members. My name is June Glassmeyer, and I reside in Thousand Oaks, California. I was on the Council on Aging for 6 years, from 1996 to 2002, and during the last 2 years of my 6-year term, I was chair. The Council on Aging is charged with the responsibility of making recommendations on matters of concern to senior citizens. The City Council also directs the Council on Aging to develop and recommend to the City Council the problems and needs of senior citizens and propose solutions thereof. The Council on Aging is also tasked with outreach to the senior community, which includes providing vital information to senior adults in the community. The senior population between the ages of 55 and 64 is expected to almost double in the next 10 years, and in order to meet this growing demand, I feel it is imperative that the Thousand Oaks Council on Aging be directed to plan and prepare the Senior Adult Master Plan, which will be presented later in this council meeting. Let the City of Thousand Oaks continue to service the senior population in the future as it has done in the past. I stand in support of the Senior Adult Master Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Maria DeSornis, followed by Susan Poprock, followed by Sig, looks like Vergoyer, if I got that right. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Fox, council members. I just wanted to invite you, my name is Maria DeSorn, president of the Conejo Valley Art Museum. We are just going to be celebrating our 20th year of Art Walk, and we invite everybody to come and see Art Walk June 2nd and 3rd. Please mark those dates, this Saturday and Sunday, June 2nd and 3rd. And we have music, lots of art. We have caricatures. We'll be doing some caricatures. And we have musicians and lots to eat and lots of fun for everybody. And so we welcome you to Thousand Oaks, June 2nd and 3rd to Art Walk. And we're celebrating our 20th year. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Susan Poprock, followed by Sig Berger. Okay, thanks. And Barrett Hines. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Fox and council members and staff. My name is Susan Poprock, and I am a commissioner on the Council on Aging. I'm here tonight to announce a very special event. The City of Thousand Oaks Council on Aging dedicates an annual event, the Senior of the Year Awards Ceremony, to publicly recognize the contributions our senior adult volunteers make to our community. This year, the nominees for Senior of the Year are Bud Homer Campbell, Robert Fitch, Edward Francis, Irv Kerner, Ida Lee, Dottie LaWalt, Joe LaWalt, Arlene Norkin, and Mary Williford. Each of these nominees has performed exceptionally and contributed many volunteer hours in service, and all nominees will be honored at the ceremony, and one will be selected Senior of the Year. The event is an evening of entertainment and socialization for all of the nominees and their guests. This year's ceremony will be held at the Global Senior Adult Center Thursday, June 7th at 6 p.m. and will include dinner by Amici's Pizza and Pasta and the big band sounds of the Unforgettables. We would like to especially thank the community donors who make this event possible, including Amici's Pizza and Pasta, the Civic Arts Plaza Foundation, Costco, Paul Dwork, Home Depot, Hungry Hunter, Jack's Shoes of Westlake, Mann Theaters, the Nordic Nursery, the Oaks Mall, Trader Joe's, and, of course, our band, the Unforgettables. Tickets are available for a suggested donation of $3 at the Global Senior Adult Center, and you may call 381-2744 or 449-2743, or email the Council on Aging at toaks.org for more information about the ceremony or to make a donation. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, ma'am. Sig Farragher, followed by Barrett Hines, followed by Arnold Wadowski. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Sig Farragher. I live in Newbury Park for over 5 years in the neighborhood of Silas and Borchard. And I've come just to stress, I think, the importance that the City Council substantially and adequately address the issue of safety in that intersection. Many of the neighbors that live in the neighborhood know that intersection to be dangerous currently, and by closing Silas at Borchard right now and increasing the traffic into an already dangerous intersection, I don't think, and many of the neighbors and many of the people that travel that intersection do not think it's a wise idea. And I ask that the City Council please consider options such as a crossing guard, enforcing no rights on red in that intersection, pedestrian bridge. I know it wouldn't be very popular, but it's an option. And I think what is on the table right now is changing the timing of the traffic lights, and I just want to state that I don't think that change is going to be substantial. It's not going to really address the issue of safety, and it's going to compromise the safety of children that travel that intersection and pedestrians that travel that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farragher. Barrett Hines, Arnold Wadowski, and our last speaker is Dr. James Wondra. Good evening, sir.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Barrett Hines. I've lived in Newbury Park area of Thousand Oaks, and I'm here to discuss the Silas Avenue, the proposed abandonment of Silas Avenue, which my family traverses daily to get to where they need to go. In recent years, we've seen traffic increase along Borchard due to the developments that were put in Dos Vientos and some on Newbury Road down by the freeway. Whereas I don't like the inconveniences to myself due to that, I realize there's a rational trade-off, and I accept that because it's a balance of the rights and needs of other residents and the businesses in the area. But I can't say the same about this proposed development. The council has heard a lot of testimony from many residents on why this particular section of road is vital to access and how safety will be degraded in the area. The trade-offs are not balanced here. Please place due consideration on the combined expertise of these many residents who are extremely familiar with this area and traverse it in all kinds of conditions. But perhaps it's hard to weigh some of these soft issues in light of the information you have before you. I'm an engineer. I have been for 28 years. I daily assess quantitative information and make decisions based on that. So I examine the issue of safety using the numbers provided by the city staff. In a nutshell, the accident rate at Teresa at Borchard is 3 times higher than that of the proposed street that's going to be closed. It's 3 times higher than at Silas. This is a quantitative evaluation, and it has to do with the demonstrated performance, the demonstrated safety at this specific location. One can only conclude that if the proposal is accepted and Silas is closed, that we'll be moving a lot of traffic to a more hazardous intersection. Simply to state that this closure should be done because it follows a general policy with the city rings rather hollow when we have numerous instances where it's already violated and we don't follow that policy nearby. And how can this general conclusion, this general policy, trump specific data, specific numbers at the specific intersection of interest? So I urge you to reject the application, I know it will be a problem for the developer, but alternatives exist that allow us, the development, to go through and keep Silas Avenue open all the way to Borchard. The developer has relied on the city's demand to include an abandoned Silas Avenue in their plans. Even so, this situation does not make closure of Silas a good idea. Abandonment of Silas will forever degrade access for over 400 families. Safety will be reduced, and the community is clearly not receiving a balanced trade-off. Again, please reject the application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Arnold Wydowski and James Wondra. Good evening.
Hi. Mayor Fox, members of the board. My name is Arnold Wydowski, and I live in Newbury Park. For about the past month and a half, a number of residents, we've been discussing with you and the community the abandonment of Silas. And the more and more that I've looked at what's happening with this program, the more I am that I'm against the abandonment of Silas. Funneling 1,900 cars onto Teresa, which presently has only 600 cars exiting, is going to make another 75% traffic going out that way. We have those 119 children that the report said walk across every day from Sequoia, children who are children. They walk all ways. They don't look to see if cars are coming one way. They're trying to run over to their parents' car. And we're just going to take and put so much traffic, both pedestrian and car traffic, that we're just waiting for an accident to happen. There was an accident right after we met with you in that board meeting. I'm also concerned about emergency vehicles. It's a 40-foot wide street, 179-foot long street on Teresa. If you have that big hook and ladder that has to come up there, even when there isn't traffic, that's going to be really hard for it to make those turns. When you go ahead and put other traffic, we're talking about 290 cars an hour in a 10-hour span. It's going to make it very hard. They've changed the lights right now so that one is coming from north and one is going south. That's just taken us much longer. It's blocking up the traffic on Borchard. I've noticed that already. So I just hope that you could see your way to not closing Teresa. Silas, it's just not a good idea. It's not a safe idea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our last public comment card, James Wondra.
Good evening. I'm Dr. James Wondra. I just want to express my opposition also to the closure of Silas. I'm a resident on Silas Avenue, and I don't want to repeat all the same issues that everybody else has gone over. I want to express, first of all, that I am very sympathetic to the needs of the developer. I've done some developing in the area myself. I own a medical building in the area, so again, I can't express how sympathetic I feel as to the needs of the developer, but I don't think that his needs need to be met at the expense of the closure of Silas. There's been a lot of different numbers of people that will be affected by this based on the studies that have been done, but the numbers I heard were that over 1,700 people will be impacted negatively by the closure of Silas. It doesn't weigh out well to close that street. That street's been in effect for decades. Last year, my son, who attends Sequoia School, was walking across the street in the morning with a classmate, and his classmate was struck down by a car, narrowly missing my son. My son was almost hit by that car. We have an intersection that is already considered to be hazardous for the students. To close Silas and increase the risk or the hazards at that particular intersection just doesn't seem to make sense. Again, my concern is also the emergency vehicles. There are times of the day when that particular intersection is terribly congested and busy, and if emergency vehicles need to service the area where my home and many other homes are, they'd have difficulty getting to us in time, perhaps in the time that's needed to help the problem. Again, I'm asking that you very strongly consider keeping Silas open. I think it's the main thoroughfare, and the safety issues are my main concern at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, that concludes our cards for public comment. We'll move to item 7, That is the City and Redevelopment Agency consent calendar. Are there any items council wishes to pull? Councilmember Bill De La Pena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pull items C, E, F, H, and S.
Hold on now.
C, E, F as in Frank, H, and S as in Sam.
Okay. Any other requests? All right. Anybody want to move the balance of the consent calendar? Dr. Clancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If it's okay, I'll just move the balance of the consent calendar.
All right.
Specified.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I just want to bring to your attention that item 7G, there is a new agreement that is in the supplemental. There were minor modifications to it from the city attorney's office asked, and the contractor has agreed to those changes. So I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention. Thank you.
Noted. Any other issues, discussion? Mr. Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I talked to the city clerk about TU and F, which are second readings, and said even though I was not here for the first reading, I can vote on these. Thank you.
Very good. Anything else? Okay, vote please.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, that is approved. We'll move to 7C, Charlie. Councilmember Bill De La Pena.
Thank you. On page 179 of the staff report, it says that because the original contractor to whom we awarded a contract for the Community Transportation Center Administration Building sought relief, we have now switched to the next lowest bidder, LAC Construction. On that particular page, however, it says that the new apparent low bidder. What exactly does that mean?
We never did award to the first low bidder. The low bidder withdrew his bid before the award. And so we're now on the second low bidder. Usually we use the term apparent low bidder because it's not just the bid price, it's verifying that they're able to come up with the requisite bonds and insurance, all those types of things. So until they've fulfilled all those requirements and signed on the dotted line in their agreement, that we've referred to them as the apparent low. But what we're asking council is to award the contract to the new low bidder, which is LAC Construction, and then they will go through the the contractual process of submitting their bonds, signing the documents and insurance, and then the project is theirs.
Thank you. That was item C. Should we just go through everything and then? Okay.
Sure.
Item E, which is the Analytical Laboratory Services contract. It's asking that we waive the requirement to have an RFP. And what would be the harm in actually issuing an RFP also to the other company that would be participating in this?
Yeah, we actually there's two labs in Ventura County, one in Moore Park and one in Santa Paula. We use both labs. They have different capabilities. What we use the closer one for, and what we're asking to waive the RFP requirements, are the more routine day-to-day water quality sample tests we do. Because of the chain of custody requirements, we have to physically take the sample and transport it ourselves to the lab. And so rather than driving all the way to Santa Paula every day, we can just take them to the facility in Moore Park. We also use the facility in Santa Paula. They do different tests for us. And so we use them both. In this case, rather than go through the process, since we know that there's only the two labs available, we're asking councilors to waive that process and let us go with the closest lab.
Thank you. Item F. One moment. If you could explain regarding the Wendy Drive interchange improvements, what exactly happened with the services agreement with PB Americas?
Yeah, in this case, we did go through the full-blown RFP process, and subsequent to that process, PB Americas was chosen. We negotiated a scope of work with them, and then council awarded them a contract to do the design work. Subsequent to that, the lead designer on the project left the company. And then they had a reorganization of the company and several other folks left. And we looked at that and decided that the company that we had hired was, and the staff that they had assigned was going to be substantially different than that which we had hired. And so we talked to another one of the companies that had proposed. They still had the original team available. And so we're recommending to council that we withdraw the contract from PB Americas. There are no charges there. There'll be no fees involved. And go ahead and give the project then to another group, Parsons Transportation. Parsons was ranked highest on some of the raters' sheets, so it was a very close second, but PB really, with the staff they had, we didn't think were capable of doing the work any longer.
So Parsons knows of the situation?
Yes. Yeah, we've
Obviously.
negotiated the fee with Parsons, negotiated a whole new contract, and so this would basically be tearing up the old one and starting new.
Is there going to be a significant increase in the cost?
I don't recall what the cost was with PB. There isn't a significant increase or a change. I don't have the apples to apples comparison.
Thank you. And item number H deals with an increase of our fuel budget due to the higher gas prices. What percentage of our fleet actually is alternative fuel vehicles?
Right now, we're right at 1/3. That was the goal that City Council set out a number of years ago, is to convert 1/3 of the fleet to alternative fuel. So we've got compressed natural gas vehicles, we've got hybrid vehicles, a very small number of in-plant electric type vehicles. And all those together make up 1/3 of the fleet.
Given that the increase to our fuel budget is $165,000, why shouldn't we then actually raise the bar a little bit and increase that particular fleet of alternate
The
fuel vehicles?
percentages are going up. Every time we replace a vehicle, we analyze that vehicle to determine whether or not there's an alternative fuel vehicle that can be used to replace it. We've made a significant investment in compressed natural gas, and we're not sure of the future of that. We're having a difficult time obtaining CNG vehicles. So last year, for example, we replaced a whole bunch of pickup trucks, and there were no original equipment manufacturer trucks available. We actually ended up buying a lot of 2004 trucks that were still new on the lot, but 2006s weren't available. We're finding the same thing. So we're still able to get most of the large equipment, so all of our buses, some of our sweepers, some of those large pieces of equipment are available CNG, but we're having a difficult time with some of the middle class vehicles, like our carpool vehicles or carpool vans are all CNG. A lot of those are nearing time to be replaced, but we can't find replacements. So we're keeping those in the fleet right now.
I certainly could see an increase for building inspectors, perhaps, and other departments in actually switching over to hybrid vehicles, for example, rather than using regular SUVs.
Yeah, a number of those folks are driving hybrids now. As we've been replacing out the ones they've had, more and more of those are using hybrids.
Would that then be something we can put on the agenda in the near future to see if we can increase that? Because a $165,000 fuel increase to our budget is quite a bit.
Staff would be glad to do that through the budget process. There was a recent memo done on this issue, I believe, and we are, as the Public Works Director indicated, we are striving very hard to increase the numbers. We are a leader in the county in this area. Just as a reminder, having alternative fuel vehicles does not necessarily, as the Public Works Director pointed out, translate to dollar savings. It could actually end up costing more. But we will continue to pursue this. It's a goal. It's been a goal of staff for a long time. It's actually in the council goals and objectives, so we'll stay focused on that.
Thank you, and I look forward to improving that 30% percentage of our fleet to perhaps 50%. The item number S, ordinance amending the drive-through restaurant. Since I have been voting against it for housekeeping purposes, I will have to vote against this particular issue again, since it is a second reading. And I know that one of the concerns was that we needed to increase the size of menu signs for drive-throughs because some residents, perhaps senior citizens, might not be able to see the smaller font. However, our particular ordinance, which was passed, does not really dictate the size of the font, whether it is bigger or whether it stays the same. And it also was a concern to me that after Palmdale, we are now second in line with the largest menu signs for drive-throughs. Whenever we compare ourselves to other cities who happen to have more growth, bigger signs and billboards, we do enter dangerous territory. So because I think that it is not completely aesthetic and maybe not absolutely necessary, I have voted against it and will vote against it again tonight.
Okay, we have four items, C, E, F, and H. Those were just clarification, there's no action. Did you want to make a motion, Councilmember Bill-Lapini, to approve?
Yes, items C, E, F, and H. Move to approve.
All right, discussion on those items? Hearing none, vote please.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, and now I need a council member to enter a motion for item S. Mr. Gillette.
That's item S.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, at the time of the discussion, what this did was give our retailers the option that if individuals that patronize those restaurants had difficulty reading the menu boards, the restaurants had the flexibility to expand, following the staff recommendation, to a little bit larger size to make it easier for seniors and people with vision impairment to see, or some degree of vision impairment. And that item was somewhat trivialized with an article, or someone said that, well, if they can't read it clearly, then they probably shouldn't be driving a car. And I found that to be somewhat insulting to a large number of our residents that don't have exactly crystal 20/20 vision and do need a little assistance. I think they're still well able to operate a motor vehicle. So with that thought in mind, I'll move item S.
Okay, any discussion on item S? Dr. Clancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to put the hammer on the head of the nail a little bit more. When this came before Planning Commission quite a few years ago, the conversation on the size of the board really centered around those stores that had a large number of menu items. Having a large number of menu items, if the board is smaller, would necessitate the fonts being smaller. If they don't have the larger number of items, then the font can be larger. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Anybody else? Okay. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, vote please.
Motion carries 4-1.
Okay, and let me offer this to the council. Consent items are placed on the consent calendar for basically perfunctory purposes. From time to time, there are issues that council wants to pull out for clarification, and that's okay. One, I would encourage the council, if they have questions for staff for clarification, please contact staff prior to the council meeting. It puts staff in a much better position. The second, though, is I would ask council for clarification purposes, if they have a no vote that was reflected earlier in a council meeting, that we don't need an explanation behind why the no vote or the yes vote. Consent calendars are items that we should need to move forward. If council chooses to make a clarification, which is absolutely appropriate, just simply for the record say I'm voting no to keep my record consistent, and let's move forward on the item. I think the rationale and the reasons already been done in the public hearing process. Doesn't serve a lot of purpose to have council discussion on items that have already been decided. So I'd ask for your cooperation on those two items. All right, that completes our consent calendar. We'll now move to item 8. That's our public hearing. Item 8A, this is a closed public hearing, but Ms. Lawrence, you need to still call this? Or, okay. Let me just not open the hearing, but we're moving to 8A. That's the Borchard Road Plaza abandonment of Silas Avenue. As council will recall, we have a memo in our packet that outlines council has already heard public comment on this issue. We've already received a staff report on this issue. Staff has made themselves available to the council for further questions. What we're going to do now is take the issue of council deliberation off the table and place it back on for discussion. It gives council member Gillette, who's had an opportunity to review the tape and discussions with staff, to enter into deliberations and a decision on this item. So with that, Mr. Gillette, if you're prepared, maybe I could just turn it over to you for your perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Fox, for the mayor and for the council's information. The city clerk has provided me with a complete record of the April 24th hearing, DVD and all documentation and all testimony, which I have reviewed all of the information provided. the alteration of an established traffic circulation element in any neighborhood is a serious item because people get used to doing certain things certain ways. Now, I should also, before I really start with this, apologize. I was not able. I try to return all calls on all issues, and I've tried for the 9 years that I've been on the council. In this particular instance, because of travel schedules and a change in the council calendar, I was not able to return all of the calls or all of the messages that I received, but I did return a number of them. And I have received a copy of the petition that was circulated in the neighborhood and all of the information. The good news is that this creates a high degree of awareness within the neighborhood of what's going on, and it gives everybody an opportunity to, if they so choose, to have an opinion. Of the people that I contacted, I found both people that passionately wanted Silas left alone, a lot of them as a convenience issue because they use it as a ingress and egress to the neighborhood, and also they use it as a staging area to pick up and drop off children attending the school across the street. Another thing that I found from a couple of neighbors were, number one, some real horror stories about entering onto Borchard Road off from Silas, an uncontrolled intersection that enters into a very busy through street. I also found a couple of neighbors who felt strongly that they wanted it closed because they wanted the building there. They want this gateway to their neighborhood cleaned up. It's a vacant lot. It's covered with weeds and rocks and wood and what have you, and there was a feeling that it would enhance the aesthetic presence of their neighborhood and even potentially have some impact on property values. But some of them didn't want to get into the fray because they didn't want to incur the concern of neighbors who felt that they should feel one way when in fact they felt another way. So there is only a certain amount of value that can be derived from listening to what we've heard so many times, the roar of the crowd. And I've gone out a number of times, looked at the traffic flows. The traffic flow directly across the street on the intersection of Borchard entries, of course, is not really any different than we see at Los Cerritos or at Redwood or at Colina. The degree of traffic congestion during pedestrian movement, student movement hours is significant at these schools. If someone could have foreseen what would happen with the size of these schools and the volume of students, perhaps things could have been different. I heard someone reference a pedestrian bridge. I've looked at the addition of actual crossing guards. Perhaps the countdown timers that we're in the process of installing at a number of locations could be an alternative. However, with an uncontrolled intersection allowing traffic to flow out into Borchard Road, which is such a busy street, I am convinced that there are advantages to the closing of Silas and the movement of that additional vehicular traffic to a controlled intersection. The controlled intersection provides for movement back and forth and pedestrian movement, and that we encourage our Public Works Department to look for other enhancements that would in fact improve potential safety and real safety for the movement of pedestrians and vehicles at the same time during those periods of time when that intersection has the potential for its highest congestion. Those are my observations on this particular issue, and I would leave it to my colleagues for additional comment.
Okay. Any further discussion and deliberation on this issue? Mr. Gillette.
One thing I forgot to mention, the discussion about a two-story structure versus a one-story structure. Looking at it out there, and I remember the discussions we had about the Hogan Family Trust property, which is to the north, and how the building of those facilities would destroy life as we knew it if they went in, and how well they fit into the neighborhood now. I believe a two-story building would be counter to the aesthetic appearance of that area, since the house is directly across the street from this lot. One's a two-story house, a residential building, one's a one-story. The Hogan buildings are all one-story, and the medical office building directly across the street to the west is a one-story building. I think anything bigger than that would be out of character with that immediate area. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion based on Mr. Gillette's comments? Dr. Clancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Mr. Gillette. I would like to see if there is a motion and if it passes to continue with the closure of Silas, that the suggestion that the 2 mailboxes on Cindy be removed not be included in that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion on the item? Does it sounds to me like we're going to have an affirmative vote. Does somebody want to put a motion out there? Dr. Clancy.
You know, this is not a terribly easy situation. We talked about this at the last meeting. It's not a win-win. There's certainly very good points that the residents that have been protesting the possible closure of Silas, and I think that staff has a very good argument too on why it should be closed. I think the developer had a very good argument also. The only thing I disagreed with, as I just mentioned, was the suggestion to remove the 2 mailboxes on Cindy as they were a hazard, an obstacle for pedestrians. I don't really think that's true. And if the developer puts a sidewalk on the other side of Cindy, that certainly should cut the pedestrian traffic in half right there. As I mentioned a couple of the last meeting, while we hear a lot of impassioned comments from the residents, we do have to put a great deal of faith in what experts tell us. Since we're not experts, we just have to weigh what we hear and come up with something that we think is rational. As far as the emergency vehicles being hampered, we did hear a comment at the last hearing that the fire department has looked at the street situation and found it to be quite adequate for them. Regardless of if this motion fails or not, I think that the sequence lights at Borchard and Teresa definitely should be retained. If the accidents that have occurred thus far have been pedestrians crossing at Borchard from traffic coming out of the school area north of Borchard, then what that tells you is that you got a mix of pedestrians and cars coming out of the school, and you got to stop that mixture as best you can. Now, we are dealing with humans. We're dealing with small humans. And so you're not guaranteed you're going to get the results you're looking for, but you can at least do everything you can do. I think something that would just make life tremendously nicer is if the people could be educated, those dropping off their children and picking them up, if they could be educated to use the north side of Borchard and the some 900 feet of pickup drop-off space that the school allows. Because of all that, I'll move staff recommendation with the exclusion of removal of the 2 mailboxes on Cindy.
Sure, Mr. Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We received an informational memo and a direction memo from the city attorney's office. Does that motion adequately cover everything? Okay, because okay, that's it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Ms. Bilda-Pena.
I would just simply like to reiterate my comments from last meeting that although the traffic study did shed a lot of light on it and obviously does have credence, the safety aspect regarding one particular intersection at Teresa and Borchard, for example, was not addressed to my satisfaction. And as a result of that, I was not ready to allow the abandonment of Silas Avenue.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to maintain my no vote on the motion with notwithstanding the comments of the council prior to that. I feel that this is a local neighborhood issue. I also feel that the property owner in this particular case, unfortunately, through really no fault of anyone, was led to believe by the city that this was the direction they wanted the property owner to go in. That happened some time ago, certainly prior to this council. But at the end of the day, I don't think that the residents, of which, you know, my evaluation, seem to think that while they think the development is a good thing, see this as something that will negatively impact their community. I don't see this as a citywide issue or even a Newbury Park issue. This is a neighborhood issue. And in my view, we are doing something to benefit a property owner, a private property owner, and of which the other members of the community are, in a sense, going to pay the price for. And so, don't mean it to sound that harsh, but that's in a sense, I think, what our action will be. And only really time will tell if some of the things that the council has received with respect to the negative impacts really come to fruition. And so, nonetheless, I'm going to maintain my no vote on this item. Mr. Gillette, any final comments?
No.
Okay. Vote, please.
That was Mr. Glancy's motion.
Oh, okay. Dr. Clancy, vote, please.
Motion carries 3-2. Council members Bill De La Pena and Fox dissenting.
All right, that is approved. Thanks, Mr. Gillette, for the overtime. We appreciate it. And we'll move to item 8B. Madam Clerk?
Well, it's not an easy one.
Hearing advertised as required by law is open to consider agenda item 8B, fiscal year 2007-2008 Community Development Block Grant Action Plan. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding this public hearing. All documents for City Council and the official city record should be presented to the City Clerk prior to speaking. Speakers are requested to state their name and city of residence for the record. I have one person who has presented a speaker card, and they are allowed 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Lawrence. Ms. Moulton, you're going to provide the staff report on this item? All right, thanks very much.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Staff is requesting approval of the fiscal year 2007-2008 Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, Action Plan. This document, including information mandated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, was provided to you under separate cover. However, the proposed budget, which is the key piece of information, is shown on page 86 of your agenda packet. The action plan proposes to use $701,463 in new federal funding effective July 1, 2007, for activities that primarily benefit lower-income households. In addition, a total of $1,017,300 will be carried forward from prior years, for a total CDBG budget of $1.7 million. Staff is also requesting approval for the allocation of fiscal year 2007-2008 social services grants to 33 providers, totaling $218,519. The budget includes $105,219 in new federal funding and $113,300 from the city's Social Services Endowment Fund. Pursuant to city policy, the Ad hoc Social Services Committee meets every other year and provides 2 years of funding recommendations, as shown on page 90 of your agenda packet. This year's budget includes a one-time supplement of $13,300 in local funding. This supplement enables the city to increase the amount of each 2007-2008 social services grant by 6% from the amounts recommended by the 2006 Ad hoc Social Services Committee and approved by Council last year. For Council's additional information included in tonight's supplemental packet are copies of last year's Ad hoc Social Services Committee report dated April 25, 2006, and Council's approval on May 23, 2006, of one-time supplemental funding from the Social Services Endowment Fund. That concludes staff's comments, and we are available to respond to your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Milton. Questions for staff? Ms. Irwin?
Can you just explain, I'm not really clear on the Lutheran Social Services. The award went down for CDBG, but it went up for the Social Services Endowment Fund?
The total grant for Lutheran Social Services is $21,200, and the way it is split is just in order to not exceed the $105,219 in federal funds. There's a footnote on that table. In other words, the split is not significant in terms of the amount. The total grant is $21,200, and it's split because there needs to be some local funding matched with the federal funding in order to come out even.
Thank you, Ms. Milton.
Any other questions? Yeah, Councilmember Bill De La Pena.
Thank you. On page 5 of the actual budget, it states that over $1 million, is it, of funds were not expended? And I would like to know why. Column B, page 5, $1.017, $1 million. Well, let's say approximately $1 million were not expended.
Yes. The monies for the Neighborhood Improvements Program are being aggregated pending future council approval of the Old Town West Master Plan, at which time the specific improvements to be funded will be approved by council at that time. Regarding the Commercial Revitalization Program, the balance that's shown in the table, totaling $159,901, represents funding that has been previously approved to 3 projects that are pending and moving towards completion. The $76,000 awarded in prior years to the Caneo Recreation and Park District for ADA improvements at Caneo Community Park represented a rather small portion of the entire budget for that project, and the district is still working on completing their financing package, at which time the project will move forward.
What is the deadline before we would actually lose the money? Is it July 7th or July 1st, I should say?
As far as I know, there is no deadline to lose the funding. However, there is an annual requirement for the city to expend a certain amount of federal funding to keep current. However, the funding itself does not expire.
Okay, and I believe that was all I had regarding this particular item. Thank you.
You know, I don't know who's the right person here, but I was just looking at page 89, and for the council is what a good job the staff does in squeezing every dollar out. And if I'm reading the report right, there was apparently unexpended monies of $13,300 left over from the previous year that you caught, and so the net result is an increase in social service grants of 6%. Over the budgeted amount.
All the credit goes to council because last year on May 23rd, council decided to expend the monies that had not been, or to reallocate the monies that had not been expended in prior years.
Yeah, I'm sure we caught that in our detailed reading. Yeah, probably Ms. Irwin probably did, but anyway, that's a nice job on that. Any further comments or discussion? Yes. Councilmember Bill De La Pena.
We have been hearing that perhaps the funding for CDBG would be cut by the federal government. What is the status of that? Obviously, the number went down somewhat. Are we expecting any future decreases? Mrs. Milton.
Yes. Within the last week, the city has received an email from Senator Boxer, who indicated that she and a number of her colleagues have noted that the CDBG funding has been declining over the past several years, and she pledged her support to actually increase the appropriation for CDBG funding next year.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have some cards on this item. I don't know if they're questions only or comment. Connie Berini, and then Rick Schroeder. Good evening.
Hey, my name's Connie Barney, and I'm a resident of Westlake Village. And Mayor Fox and Council, I just want to take the opportunity on behalf of Women's Economic Ventures. Thank you very, very much. I have been privileged to be an instructor for 3 of the classes throughout the Ventura County. We started out with about 70 businesses wanting to go through the self-employment training program, and Saturday we have graduation of about 50 of them. I'd like to extend an invitation if you guys would like to come, see these people, see what these funds have meant to the community. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Rick Schroeder?
Mayor Fox, members of the City Council, Mr. Mitnick, my name is Rick Schrader. I'm the Executive Director for Many Mansions. And since Many Mansions has one of the larger items in this proposal, I thought I would address that. As you know, Many Mansions is an affordable housing and service provider. We have over 396 units of affordable housing here in Thousand Oaks. And one of our complexes is the Bella Vista Apartments. Bella Vista Apartments is a 72-unit complex, now fully regulated for the low and very low income. We acquired it in 2005. It was a $15.2 million project that the city helped support over 1/3 of the costs. And part of the project, we did do a rehabilitation. The complex itself is on a beautiful 4-acre site. But the buildings are over 35 years old, and we did perform over $500,000 in needed rehab, mostly focusing on health and safety concerns. A rehab for the decayed stairwell that was a concern, outdoor lighting, carports. We fixed the retaining wall between Bella Vista and the shadows, and we did some other small work. But we were unable to do extensive roof repair. And even though this past year we had very little rain, we experienced leaking in the roofs. So we did request from staff an allocation of funds to completely replace the roofs. These are 35-year roofs. And we wanted to do that for the quality of safety and the quality of life for our residents. We hope to operate Bella Vista for the next 55 years or so, so we felt it was important for this expenditure and these expenditure of funds. And I'm here to answer any other questions that you might have, but thank you for your consideration.
All right, thanks, Rick. Questions for Mr. Schrader? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's all the speaker cards we have on this item. Okay, Ms. Billy LaPena.
Thank you. I forgot to ask one question. I see that that a couple of organizations, some of them Lutheran, some of them Catholic, have consistently been receiving money. Have we received any requests from the other faith-based organizations, so to speak, or other local churches?
We have in the past funded Calvary Community Churches Community Connections Project, and there may be a couple of others. The city is certainly open to receiving funding requests from faith-based organizations, provided they agree with the city's contract form, which indicates that there will be no religious test for persons to receive services from publicly funded contracts.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. Ms. Irwin, did you have a question or want to make a motion?
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Okay, great.
I will move the staff recommendation to approve the CDBG action plan and to approve the allocation of $218,000 in social services grants, $218,519 in social services.
Okay, discussion on that? Ms. Milton, just want to point out, I know I speak on behalf of the council, again, another outstanding job in your endeavors in this thing. You provide quality work year after year in this, and we very much appreciate it. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Ms. Bill de la Pena.
I would like to find out whether we could split up this particular motion to exclude the day labor side, with which I feel uncomfortable awarding $85,000. I, of course, approve everything else with the exception of that.
So how would we do that? Just
If it's up to the maker of the motion, but if you'd like to do that, you'd move for everything except for the day labor site, and then take a second vote on that, all the recommendations minus the day labor, and then bring another motion to approve the grant to the day labor site.
Actually, I don't think that we should split the two motions.
Okay.
Okay, then what I would like to do is to offer an amendment to the motion to vote on the day labor site.
I'm going to turn to our parliamentarian, but I don't think that the amendment is an appropriate amendment. But let the parliamentarian, which also doubles as our city attorney, advise us on that.
Thank you. I think the amendment would have to be that you're amending the motion to exclude the grant to the day labor site, and the council, and you're not voting on whether to, you're only voting on whether to exclude it, not on the substantive issue, if you
Correct.
make that motion.
Yes, that would be my motion.
All right, so the amendment that Ms. Billetapena is offering is to exclude the day labor site from the budget proposal, and the maker of the motion does not want it excluded. That just frames the issue for the council. Okay? Any further discussion on that? Dr. Clancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The day laborers are a situation that exists, and we can put our head in the sand all we want to, but we're not going to eliminate the problem by failing to fund an effort that thus far has proven to be very effective in reducing some of the legal problems that have occurred down there, some of the traffic issues that have occurred down there. There's been instruction that occurs down there that further improves the situation. I think that we'd be doing a disservice to the community if we eliminate the funding for this particular purpose. My opinion.
Any further discussion? Yeah, I'm not going to support the amendment either, and here's my reason, is I was here several years ago when 17 people from this community came in and literally begged this city council to help them with their problem. They're people who had come to this city council year after year after year after year, and this city and the councils then ignored them. And the issues that were going on in this neighborhood, I would simply say to members of the community, were beyond description of what was occurring on their front yards. In that particular case, after hearing that public hearing, I took it upon myself. I went out and knocked on the doors of that community. I talked to those people. I was in that neighborhood. I observed firsthand what was going on, and I can certainly tell everybody in the community that what is occurring now is light years better than what was occurring then. Dr. Clancy is exactly right. There are no easy solutions to this issue. People that are in local government recognize that there are civil rights issues. There are laws in place that prohibit cities from taking action on issues of immigration and some of those other things. And what the city has done has been recognized as a model for other communities to follow with respect to handling the very complex and sensitive and difficult issue of day laborers. And it's unfortunate that this would be taken out for purposes of funding when, by all accounts, the city has done a pretty good job of managing an issue that is very, very difficult to manage. And I only wish that we could show the videotape of the residents that came to this council some 8 years ago now, begging the council to help them with their problem. So I'm certainly not going to support the amendment. We're going in the right direction. It's been a good thing for that community, and we certainly need to fund it. Any further discussion on the amendment? Ms. Irwin.
I'd also like to say that the grand jury has looked at what Thousand Oaks has done with the day labor site, and they have commended us on it, so I certainly will not be supporting the amendment.
Okay. Vote. Mr. Gillette.
I'm going to try and keep my remarks very brief on this particular matter, but you touched on something prior to 8 years ago. For 17 years, these people gathered behind Rob's Hardware on Crescent Way. They relieved themselves in the bushes. They wandered in the middle of the intersection. The point being that they're human beings and they can only be pushed and herded so far. This city tried it tried enforcement, it tried relocation. One suggestion was even perhaps each morning we could get a sheriff's bus to pull up and load all of them on and haul them to some remote site. And given the backgrounds and the countries they come from, that probably wouldn't have been something they'd have been willing to do. This alternative, this location, is it the absolute perfect? No, it's not, but it's certainly the best that we have been able to come up with. And when I hear the criticisms of the current site, I don't hear any alternatives. All I hear is just end it, eliminate it. And these are people, these are human beings, and there's only a certain amount of action that a public agency can take when it's trying to control human behavior. And I think that the area that we've established down there satisfies a need to the extent possible for this community at this time. Thank you.
All right, so on the amendment, please vote.
I would like to say final comments regarding the motion. I certainly applaud the efforts that have been made over the last 17 years. I have also been a constant critic of the location of this particular site. Yes, they are human beings, and we do need to help them whenever possible. However, having a day laborer site in a residential area is not the right location, and in my opinion violates our general plan. If it were in a commercial location, I would have absolutely no problem with that. But it is in a residential area. It is commercial activity in a residential area, and therefore it should be conducted in a commercial area. That is really all that I have to say regarding this particular issue. We will not ever be able to eliminate day laborer sites because there are people in our community who hire day laborers at home. There are contractors who hire day laborers, and as long as that happens, we will continue to have day laborers. But we can, I wish we could look at moving them into a commercial area, and that would definitely meet and my approval. And those are my final comments.
Okay. Vote on this item on the amendment only.
The motion fails 1-4.
All right, Ms. Irwin?
I will again move the staff recommendation.
Okay. Vote, please.
Councilmember Bill De La Pena. Motion carries 4-1. Councilmember Bill De La Pena dissenting.
All right, that is approved, and that concludes our public hearings for tonight. That moves us to item 9, that's departmental reports. 9.8 is an operational and financial review of fire services provided to the city and the contract award, and the staff report on that item will be presented by Assistant City Attorney Linda Papastillas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. It is a pleasure to be before the City Council this evening to request approval of the attached agreement with Ralph Anderson and Associates for an operational and financial review of the fire services provided to the City of Thousand Oaks. To get to this stage, City staff participated in a very thorough process. We had review with Amy Albano, our City Attorney, Mark Watkins, Director of Public Works, Mike LaPlante, our local fire chief, John Adams, Deputy Financial Director, and I all reviewed the 8 proposals that we received. I'd like to thank all of them for their assistance, and also Assistant Fire Chief Von Miller, also John Adams, and Analyst Gay Moser, who assisted me with the interview panels that we conducted with the top 4 proposers. Fire services are provided to the city by the Ventura County Fire Protection District. The district receives revenues from Thousand Oaks taxpayers through a dedicated portion of property taxes that our residents pay. Historically, these revenues collected in Thousand Oaks have exceeded the annual costs incurred to provide fire services. The City Council has found that conducting periodic reviews of the city's various contract services to be quite useful. Last year, a review was done on the provision of police services. Several years ago, there were other fire reviews done. City staff have negotiated the attached agreement with the consultant staff. The principal on this project will be Mr. John Goss. Mr. Goss is a former city manager for the cities of Chula Vista and Alameda, and also served as assistant county administrator of San Bernardino County. And more recently, he has been part of a team of experts developing a proposal to create the San Diego Regional Fire Protection District for the San Diego Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCO. In addition, he will be assisted with fire expertise by Chief John Bowman, who has served as the fire chiefs of Anaheim and San Diego and is currently serving as the interim chief of Oceanside, but that assignment will be soon ending. Mr. Goss is here with us this evening, along with Chief Mike LaPlante, and both are available with other various city staff for questions. In addition, at a later date, staff will be getting back to the council with some dates. We will be conducting interviews with various fire personnel and city staff members, and when we have those dates, all council members individually will be invited to meet with our consultants. This is Mr. John Goss, our city council.
Mr. Goss,
and
good
we're
evening.
available for any questions if you
Okay.
have any.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Goss? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Roy.
Actually, I don't know exactly who can answer this, but I don't, maybe I missed it. Could you tell us about the criteria that was used? It obviously wasn't just the cost, but how did you come to this final decision?
All of the different staff in their different areas of expertise looked at the various proposals, and they varied widely with the work that they had done previously, where the different staff members had expertise, different types that they had conducted in the past. Some were more a financial review. We were looking for both operational and financial. In the case of the consultant that we chose, they also had the background of Mr. Goss with city and county management, so we wanted both that and the fire expertise. And then from there, we looked at the proposals and boiled it down to the top 4, invited them in so that we could question them more thoroughly and based on their proposals, if there were things that we had questions on. And some of it at that stage was also building the relationship with the people that we were talking to. Did we feel that city staff would get more from them, that we could work with those? And that's how we determined. We came down to 2 finalists, and we did some background checking, and then eventually went with this firm.
And so we're going to be getting a report back in 2 months then, basically?
Yes, our goal is to do this in the month of July.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Goss. It's a pleasure to the council on this item. Ms. Bill de la Pena.
Thank you. In reviewing this particular contract and then trying to go through the history of our police department review, it occurred to me that we didn't hire any outside contractor to review the police services, now did we?
I don't believe you did, but I'm a bit at a loss because I wasn't here when you conducted that. So I'm looking at.
I can chime in. I'm not sure if we did use, I know they talked about it in the early 90s. I can't, if Candy's here, she might recall, or Mike, I don't know if you recall. But the point is, with the police service, we've developed a high level of expertise in-house with our internal audit and accounting and finance folks. And so they do a routine analysis every 5 years. This is different. It's been a long time since the fire service was reviewed. We do not have the expertise in-house. The police service is provided to us via a contract with the police chief acting as a department head and fully part of the city operations. Fire, while Mike LaPlante is our fire chief and attends our meetings, it's a service that is not provided via contract but via district. So it's a little different animal, and we really do need to rely on outside experts. We just don't have the ability or capability in-house. I hope that helps answer that.
Well, yes, it answers it to some extent. I'm just wondering why we have limitations to do the work ourselves. What are the limitations? Is it staffing, or what would it be?
Well, I mean, there are, on the police side, you either have your own police department or you contract out. I don't know of any police districts in California. So it's very easy to understand the pros and cons. This is different in that it's a district, and it's not a clear-cut case and of how we should do the analysis. We've determined in-house we don't have the expertise or the knowledge base, and we're concerned that we would not be objective internally, and so we need outside experts. And it's always healthy to get outside people to come in and do an arm's length assessment. We can ask Mr. Goss or our consultants to chime in on why that's valuable, but I don't know what else I can add. Thank you.
Councilmember, I would also add that the difference sometimes with delivery of police and fire services are often that fire services can be regional in nature, because sometimes you have county services or there are mutual aid agreements, and so sometimes because it crosses over the different lines, that's why we also are looking into this, because sometimes your services are provided in an area that's outside just your city limits. And I would look to Mr. Goss if he had another thing to add.
I think one thing you do, one thing that we've been asked to do is to evaluate the level of service that you're getting. And obviously, who are the experts in evaluating that? And those are the folks that are currently providing the service. And so do you look to the Fire Protection District to evaluate themselves? Well, sure, they can give you their evaluation, but sometimes from the perspective of the city that's receiving the service, at least that's my sense of this, is that there's a need to take a look at objectively from another perspective, from an expert perspective, the level of service you're receiving here. And one of the other issues, I think there was a outside consultant that did a fiscal analysis for you back in 1993 that also evaluated the fact that the amount of revenue in terms of property tax, mitigation fees, and other fees from Thousand Oaks exceeded the cost of services being received by the city. And that's another component, is to look at that, to see if the, if that imbalance, if you will, is still there, and if so, what does the community want to do about it? What are your options? And there's a whole range of things, from developing your own fire department to getting improved services from the Fire Protection District. So those are some of the issues where you may need somebody who, has some outside expertise to objectively evaluate the services you're receiving and also to look at the financing that's here.
Thank you, Mr. Goss. You actually answered the question I was going to ask, namely an option being that we form our own fire department. How long would that take?
To form a fire department?
Yes.
Well, our study would be done in July. We'd have options and recommendations to you. But to get to the point of creating your own fire department would involve, in part, pulling out of the Fire Protection District. So that would involve a LAFCO process that I could see take, up to a year. And then you might take several months or even another year after that to be able to accomplish that objective.
Okay, so about a 2-year window. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Gillette.
Thank you, Mayor Fox. There is so much more to this than just what is the actual dollar cost, what's going out of the community in support of the Ventura County Fire Protection District, and options that would be available to the city. The formation of a regional district, the formation of a direct contract with the Fire Protection District selectively for the city and break it up that way. formation of an independent fire department, contracting with an out-of-county fire. I mean, there's a whole potpourri of options here. And the thing is that this community has been exceptionally well served since 1874, or whenever the district was formed. And no one's looking at altering that, but we need to get a handle on how much in tax revenue and tax generated money is going out of here to support the fire protection district, and what level of service are we getting. We just need to know that, as we needed to know it with the Sheriff's Department. And I want to make sure that no one jumps on this and tries to say that anyone's looking to make any major alteration or change in anything. This is something that is a sound management practice we need to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Gillette. Any other comments on that item? Okay, somebody want to make a motion? Mr. Gillette?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Okay, discussion on this? Vote, please.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, that is approved. Item number 2, that's the budget appropriation. Do we need to do that by separate motion, or are we okay on that? Okay, all right. All right, so that completes items 9A, 1, and 2. We'll move to item 9B. That's the draft regional 10-year strategy to end homelessness in the County of Ventura, and we have Ms. Milton's going to provide that staff report again.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening. Once again, Mayor and Council, prior to June 5th consideration by the Ventura County Board of Supervisors, the staff is providing for your review and comment 2 documents prepared by the Ventura County Homeless and Housing Coalition. A proposed 10-year strategy to end homelessness for Ventura County was provided to you as a separate document, and the results of a 2007 homeless count survey is included in your agenda packet beginning on page 123. The Ventura County Homeless and Housing Coalition is a regional nonprofit membership organization that includes representatives of the county, local cities, organizations that advocate for the homeless, and the faith community. Since 1995, the coalition has obtained $11 million in federal funds for Ventura County projects that house and serve the homeless. Future federal funding is contingent upon implementation of 10-year strategy goals and periodic homeless counts. That is the significance of these documents. In addition, and in response to a letter request provided on pages 152 and 153 of tonight's agenda packet, staff is recommending a grant of $15,000 for the coalition from the city's unappropriated general funds balance. Staff is also requesting that council direct the staff to continue working with the coalition to prepare recommendations for future council consideration that would include action steps, anticipated costs, and funding resources. Such recommendations would represent options for Thousand Oaks' fair share of the regional effort to address homelessness during the 10-year strategy period of 2008 to 2017. 2 individuals who provided leadership for the 10-year strategy and the 2007 homeless count are here this evening to support the plan and the funding request. They are Ventura County Homeless and Housing Coalition Executive Director Kathy Brudnicki and Many Mansions Executive Director Rick Schrader. Several letters supporting the 10-year strategy have been received. Many Mansions support letter is printed on page 155 of your agenda packet. Letters from the MANA Board of Directors, from the Conejo Workforce Housing Group, and from nonprofit Havarim B'nai B'rith are printed in your supplemental packet. Also in tonight's supplemental packet is additional background on this item, including information on past and current funding for the Ventura County Homeless and Housing Coalition. This concludes staff's presentation, and we are available to respond to your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Milton. Questions? Ms. Irwin.
I don't know if this is a question for you, Ms. Milton, or maybe Ms. Rudnicki, Kathy. I mean, it was a very thorough report, and I'm just wondering how are you going to get cities to have buy-in with this plan? When I look at, 150 additional shelter beds and transitional housing and permanent supportive housing, we have very little of that right now in the entire county already. I think for transitional housing, I believe we only have one facility, if I'm not mistaken. So how do you foresee all the cities coming together and being cooperative in this effort?
I'm sure Mrs. Brudnicki would appreciate an opportunity to address that question.
If you look at the recommendations, you'll notice there are 22. Some of those are items that will be done on a regional basis, and some are items that will be worked on within specific cities. We are forming an interagency council on homelessness, a local one, that will consist of all of the people who touch homeless folks in their everyday lives. So it will include libraries and educators and, the whole cross-section. And we hope that in discussion with those folks and their discussions with you, that we will be able to gain the cooperation that we need in order to carry out this strategy. As Mrs. Milton mentioned, our future funding will depend on our ability as a local entity to reach these goals. The other thing, I know that some of you attended the Director Mangano's presentation, and he was very specific in the areas where these plans have been adopted and where communities are working together, the number of homeless goes down, and that is our goal. So we don't expect the 22 recommendations to be adopted in every single city. We think that each city, for example, Simi Valley selected, I think, 4 and then made one of their own. So in that city, they're working on those specific ones, and they will also be working with us on some of the more regional ones. So we see that there will be local groups, and then there will be larger groups that will be working across jurisdictional lines.
So CME has already picked 4 recommendations, but our staff would continue to work to look at what Thousand Oaks could do.
CME has had a council on homelessness since 1999, so they were a little ahead of the curve in that they already had an organization in place in their city. The same is true of the city of Ventura. Here, the Caneo Housing Group will form the nucleus of that local entity for us. I know some of you came to the January forum where we talked about housing and homelessness, and the group that put that on is the Caneo Housing Group.
So, for example, CME, which would be a community more similar to ours than, let's say, Ventura, what recommendations did they adopt?
I didn't bring those with me. I know homeless prevention is one of them, and that's one we're actually hoping every city will adopt. But I could get that information for you. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
Thank you very much.
Andy. Mr. Gillette.
Good evening. Item 2, we're being requested to award a grant of $15,000 from the general fund. What is my assumption is that's part of a larger amount?
That's right. We're asking each of the large cities, and this would constitute a large city, for $15,000, and we're asking the smaller cities for $5,000. Because our homeless count and our 10-year strategy to end homelessness was not released until I think it was April 13th, we missed the funding deadlines, especially in some of the little cities, but that doesn't mean we're not going to go back
and ask them for that money. We really need some funding to be able to move this work forward. And so we're hoping, homelessness is a regional issue. We're hoping everyone will step up and do their fair share. And I don't want to give you the impression that Thousand Oaks has not done its fair share. You've been with us pretty much every step of the way, and you've had people at the table, both volunteers from this community and paid staff from this community, with us throughout the entire working group. We worked 15 months on this strategy to end homelessness, and we've had Thousand Oaks residents there all of the time.
And in this funding formula, how much is the County of Ventura putting in?
The County of Ventura, I need to back up a little bit. Mrs. Milton reminded you that the Homeless and Housing Coalition is the entity that sponsors the county-wide HUD Continuum of Care application each year. That application brings in over $1 million every year into the county. Up until October of 2006, the Homeless and Housing Coalition was an all-volunteer group. 2 years ago, when HUD brought out the 10-year strategy requirement and the homeless count requirement, the board of the coalition realized that as an all-volunteer entity, we could no longer serve this community well, that we needed to have someone who was working on these activities every single day. And so we went and talked to the county, we talked to city staff, we talked to the agencies that were receiving the funding, and over a period of 8 months, all of these multiple conversations led to the county saying, we think that the Homeless and Housing Coalition is the right group to be doing this work. And so the county in January 2006 gave $200,000 over a 3-year period. They committed it to the Homeless and Housing Coalition to carry out the activities that are outlined in the staff report.
And that money was part of their CDBG grant?
Councilmember Gillette, I don't know where they got the money from. I was just happy to get it.
Carolyn, did that come from CDBG or out of the county general fund?
Councilmember, the county, there's some information in your supplemental packet on this item, and the county used something called special accounts and contributions, which are actually unrestricted funds.
Okay, so it's part of their budget allocation, not a CDBG grant.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Let me ask one other question. Did the Housing Coalition come out of the Community Partnership Organization, which came out of the Community Foundation? Was that its genesis?
No, it began actually in the 1980s as a group of United Way agencies that were working in the arena of homelessness and housing, and resources started to become scarcer and scarcer. So they came together really as a networking group to talk about how they could best conserve scarce resources. And then in 1994, the Homeless and Housing Coalition applied to be a separate nonprofit entity and has maintained that since 1994.
Okay, the reason I'm asking, I know there's a considerable involvement with the community foundation.
Yes, we are involved with the Community Foundation. If you look, you will see that they have also been involved as part of the working group on the 10-year strategy to end homelessness.
Okay. And when the community partnership was formed to look at community issues countywide, one of the things that they were adamant about was that they did not want any local elected officials involved in that process. I happen to be in one of the organizations that they made their presentation to when it first started. So I notice in this now, we've got 3 elected officials, 2 members of the County Board of Supervisors and 1 city councilman from the city of Ventura, and that's it for elected representation at least in the working group? Is that by design, or is?
No, anybody who wanted to could come and be part of the working group. It was not by invitation only. Anybody could just come and work with us. So you could have been there too.
Oh, well, thank you for that invitation. I appreciate that. Let me ask, Carolyn, what is the status of participation then with, if you're going to group it by large cities, there's 4 large cities in the county. Oxnard's number 1, we're second, Semi is third, and Ventura is fourth. Where are they in their contributions? Let's take the four largest cities.
Very well. As I mentioned earlier, there is some additional information provided in this evening's supplemental packet. But briefly, the city of Oxnard is the only Ventura County city currently eligible to receive homeless funding directly from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Because of that, they have developed their own 10-year plan, and although they cooperate with the Ventura County Homeless and Housing Coalition, they are pursuing their own 10-year strategy, and they, to the best of my knowledge, they do not fund VCHHC. The city of Ventura has provided VCHHC with annual grants of $5,000 to date. No decision has yet been made about increasing support to $15,000 per annum, but staff is considering incorporating this funding into that city's upcoming CDBG action plan, which is scheduled for consideration on June 11. The city of Simi Valley, as was discussed earlier, has approved annual allocations of $15,000 a year to the Ventura County Homeless and Housing Coalition. The city of Camarillo at this time has not made any decision to fund the coalition. Their CDBG funds are fully committed. The city of Moore Park apparently has a decision pending, but it has not yet gone to the city council. There's a belief that the staff will recommend funding of $5,000 in Moore Park. And finally, the cities of Fillmore, Ojai, Port Hueneme, and Santa Paula are unable to contribute at this time, as the request for funding came at the end of their budget cycles, and their CDBG funding is committed for the present time.
Okay, so if I understand you, based on this request, item 2 in the recommendations, it would be the city of Thousand Oaks and the city of Simi Valley, and to some extent the city of Ventura.
And Moore Park is also expected to provide some.
Well, expected to, but Okay, thank you.
Okay, any, Mr. Schrader, did you have comments or just questions? Okay, come on up. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Fox, members of the City Council. I'll be brief. Rick Schrader, again, Executive Director for Many Mansions. Just a couple of comments on this. Many Mansions obviously supports the 10-year plan, and we support the funding request for the coalition. As you may not know, Many Mansions is the leading provider of permanent supportive housing in this county. And much of our supportive housing is here in Thousand Oaks, our Essa Village complex, Richmond Terrace, Stoll House. We receive funding from HUD through the Continuum of Care dollars, over $200,000 every year. $200,000 that we use for supportive services for our disabled and homeless residents. Services such as counseling, case management, job development, some operating subsidies to help run the complexes. Some of the money in the past have been used for the actual construction. So this plan and the support for the coalition is essential for us to continue to receive the funding and to continue to have these services for our most needy residents. We did participate. We had over 55 volunteers this past January in doing the count of the homeless. There were approximately 80 people that we counted here in the city of Thousand Oaks that were homeless. that does understate the actual figures. Our waiting list has over 700 households now, and of the 700, 65% of them indicate that they're homeless or in the threat of homelessness. But nevertheless, the count here in Thousand Oaks was much lower than other cities of Simi Valley and Ventura. And I think in a large part that's because of your past support. You have done more than your fair share, I would say, in addressing the homeless issue. But I would ask for your continued support, and I would ask your continued support for the coalition and the 10-year plan.
Thanks, Mr. Schrader.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Anything from staff? All right, how about a motion? Mr. Gillette.
I'm prepared to move the recommendation items 1 and 3. At this time, I'm just don't have the comfort level I'd like to have with the funding. I don't want to see us out at the front end leading the parade on financial contributions, and I don't know what that does to the overall participation. Perhaps someone can tell me what do we do if we approve 1 and 3 and not 2? What does that do to the process if we postpone 2 for the time being?
Mr. Mick,
Carolyn,
do you want to take care of that? I don't know.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that's certainly a prerogative. You can do that, and if we need to provide more information. I wanted to okay. Very good. Do what you have to do.
Thank you, Mr. Mitnick.
I'd like to say I'll be brief, but I guess I won't be. I just like to point out that the city managers from Moore Park, Simi Valley, and Thousand Oaks, Mike Siddell and Steve Cuny, myself, we discussed this yesterday. Simi has already approved it. Moore Park is going to hear this pretty soon, and staff will recommend there that they fund their $5,000. My understanding is Ventura did. Oxnard's taken care of itself. There's some uncertainty with some of the smaller cities that don't have a lot at stake here. We're going to be talking about this Thursday at the monthly Ventura County City Managers meeting, and Johnny Johnson, the county CEO, will be there as well. For the 3 cities in our region, Simi, Moore Park, and Teal, the 3 city managers feel that all the cities should be participating, or none of them should. So we're going to have that discussion with our peers. At this point, I would recommend to council that you go ahead and do this appropriation because we do have a lot at stake. But if we can't reach agreement among the cities going forward, then we can approach other avenues. So that would be my recommendation.
Thanks, Mr. Mitnick.
Okay, with that, because I certainly don't want you to go into this poker game without having a hand, Mr. Mitnick. But I'll tell you what, I guess maybe my sensitivities about the criticism that we often get, because we have done extensive financial planning. We do manage our resources and our finances, and then with many of our colleague public agencies around the county, we get criticized. And when a municipality says they don't have money to address something as critically important as this, human beings not having adequate shelter, I can't accept that, because these are public agencies that have resources, so it's a matter of prioritizing. And you have to figure out, and each municipality has to figure out, is this something that's important enough for them to put in their budget? Not that they can't afford it. They choose to fund something else. However, being much more parochial and looking at southeastern Ventura County, and it's 3 municipalities, and it's 48% of the county population, with that thought in mind, I'll move the staff recommendation, points 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Gillette. Mr. Gillette moves all 3 items on this. Discussion? Okay, vote, please.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, that is approved. Finally, item 9C is a department report on the proposed ad hoc council committee for the auto mall. And Mr. Wartick, I believe you're going to provide the staff report on that. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item 9C is a staff recommendation that the Council approve the appointment by the Mayor of a 2-member ad hoc committee of the Council to work with the city staff and the auto mall with respect to dealing with the auto mall parking issues. These are issues that have been in the community for at least the last 10 years. And I'm pleased to be able to report that in the last year, a series of staff meetings and meetings which have also included the senior leadership at the Auto Mall have begun to approach a partial solution to the parking issues that relate to employee parking and customer parking at the Auto Mall. We're reaching the point where we'll have an additional meeting on May the 31st, following which we would expect some specific recommendations will begin to be formulated over the next 6 to 12 months. And because of the importance of this issue, staff sense that the council will want to participate in the dialogue with staff and with the Auto Mall leadership. So based upon that, item 9C is our request that the appointment be made.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Wartick. Questions? Seems pretty straightforward. Ms. Bilde La Pena.
Thank you. At first, I thought it perhaps was not a bad idea to form a council committee. But having just finished a major project on political ethics for my graduate degree, I have to say that I do see some ethical problems, no legal problems, but perhaps ethical problems in that we have council members who are receiving contributions from the Auto Mall and significant contributions from the Auto Mall. And I don't see that there is, in fact, I do see an appearance of a conflict of interest when a council member receives thousands and thousands of dollars from an entity in legal contributions, and then perhaps sits on a committee to decide something that affects a major contributor. Given that we will have an election next year, there is quite the possibility, or a strong possibility, that council members who may serve on this particular committee will receive significant contributions from the Auto Mall. Therefore, I don't think, in hindsight and just having studied political ethics, that it is a good idea to have committee or council members serve on a committee that affects a major contributor to their campaign. I think that this should be left at the staff level. Staff has been doing significant progress, as you mentioned, in the last year, and it seems to be working out quite well. Now, I know that there is an argument that can be made that said $320 worth of a contribution, which is the maximum contribution, will not affect or impact my decision or my opinion. And that may very well be the case. But we have to think at and look at this collectively, whether it's $320 or whether it's $20,000, for example, whether there is a strong potential that the Auto Mall will support certain council members next year. We have to look at that and see, is this really ethical? I'm not accusing anyone of being unethical. I'm just saying that overall, this topic of ethics and politics has been studied ad nauseum. Ad nauseum. There is all kinds of literature available, and all of the experts in this country agree that what is legal is not necessarily ethical, and that it is in the best interest of the public and the community to avoid any appearance of bias or impropriety. And I feel, and I have argued in the past, that council committees dealing with major contributors is really not a proper thing to do, which is one of the reasons why I stopped serving on the Oaks Mall committee. So I strongly urge my colleagues, in order to avoid an appearance of impropriety, even though none may exist, not to appoint this particular committee and to let staff handle that and then let council make the final decision when staff brings a recommendation before the council.
Okay. We don't have any cards in this item, so it's just for council discussion. Anybody? Ms. Irwin?
No, I actually agree with Councilmember De La Pena. I think looking at it that way, we don't want to have the appearance of an impropriety. So although I think that I had suggested this initially, I'm not going to support this.
Okay, let me offer, before we get too far down the road, let me offer just a different perspective. I just recently went through my 4th campaign, and the results speak for themselves. But at the same time, I was serving on the Oaks Mall committee, and I chose not to take any contributions by anybody from the Oaks Mall for the exact reason Councilmember Billy LaPena had cited, is while I felt that I could be objective and vote on it, given the close and involvement with meetings that were open meetings with the community, certainly no closed meetings, agendized meetings. I thought that the appearance, not any issue of ethical or legal, but the appearance of that weighed, and so I chose not to take any campaign contributions. I think the same thing should apply here to the council, although it has to be left up to the individual council member. I think one way around that would be is we have 3 of us who just went through an election, and so it would be the pleasure of the council, we could appoint members, if the council so chose, that were not going to be up for re-election. The other thing I point out is that I don't think it's constructive, even though we're having a nice civil debate, to call out certain contributions made by certain entities into the community to certain council members. As an example, we just voted on a lease for the county supervisor. I'm not sure, but I think maybe there was some contribution or endorsement in that case, or dealt with the lease issue. Actually, a couple years before that, council voted for the supervisor at a less than market rate. And so I just think it's not constructive necessarily to point those things out on a case-by-case basis, but the broader issue that Ms. Billy LaPena has brought up, I think, makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, it has to be left to the individual council member. Of course, all campaign contributions are disclosed to the public. It's very open, it's very transparent, and it's really up to the public to decide whether somebody has served in an ethical and moral fashion in that regard or otherwise. The other issue, and maybe even more overriding, is we're elected to do work. We are elected to not shy away from making the difficult decisions, to use good judgment, and to serve all the residents of the city of Thousand Oaks. And that includes people that donate to individual campaigns. It's free speech, and it's certainly been established through campaign contributions and laws and limits the level of contribution here in this community. It's $320. But the Auto Mall, businesses along the boulevard, the Oaks Mall, these are huge major components with respect to the community, and I think that council needs to balance the issues of campaign contributions and perceived ethical issues with the work that we are elected to do. And some issues are important enough and complex enough that staff would not be asking for a committee if they didn't feel that we would add value to that. And I can again give you my experience that the input that I was able to give through the Oaks Mall process fashioned a very, very smooth process. And that Oaks Mall, as big as that project was, it sailed right through with tremendous community support and very, very little issues because we dealt with them in a committee process through several months of open community meetings with the community. And myself, and at the time Mr. Wilson, were able to be there, listen to the comments of the community, and then give thoughtful input to city staff. So I just think we need to balance this. I'm not strong one way or the other, but I think we need to frame this issue not so much as right or wrong or ethical issues, but we need to look at this first, what we were elected to do, and then if the council member decides to serve on that committee or volunteers to serve on that committee, they need to reconcile how they're going to run their campaign. The other issue is pointed out in the staff report, as mayor, I think it falls upon me to make the recommendation to the council to serve on the committee, and I will tell you that that I'm inclined to appoint 2 council members who are not going to stand for re-election. And so that hopefully should take care of the issues that we're discussing tonight. Mr. Clancy, or Dr. Clancy, did you have a comment? You had your hand up.
I did, but I think that your comments were so much neater than mine, I'll just pass.
Okay. Mr. Gillette, you want to add to this?
No, other than to say I'm not available to serve on that committee.
Okay. All right. Mr. Mitnick.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just for clarification purposes, there will be no decisions made by this committee. There were some statements to that effect. I was the one who decided to put this on from the staff. Although the staff as a whole, we were weighing through a variety of issues related to the auto mall in terms of landscaping, signage, parking, budget, design, et cetera. And we feel that as staff, we get overwhelmed at times with these large projects, and it is very helpful, and productive to bounce ideas off council committees from time to time, such as the Oaks Mall Committee, and also the Capital Facilities Committee, two council members. That's a very helpful process. So it's a sounding board that's being recommended by staff so we can be more focused along the way, and then that committee may or may not make recommendations to the council as a whole, but any decisions made dealing with the auto mall will be made by the 5 of you up here at a council meeting. So I just wanted to point that out.
All right. Any further discussions on this? Okay, I just want to point out to the council the revised language that staff has provided on item 9C. It's very brief, so I just read it. To establish an ad hoc city council at Auto Mall Committee, authorize the mayor with city council concurrence to appoint 2 council members to serve on the committee to review with staff various auto mall parking, landscaping, signage, design, budget, and related issues. Okay. Ms. Bildo-Lapena.
I would like to make a motion, if that is in order.
Sure.
My motion would be to not to establish an ad hoc council committee and let staff negotiate this, continue to negotiate this and discuss this. There have been many other projects in the past that were done without any direct council involvement. Again, I have learned quite a deal, not only over the past 4 years of being a city council member, but also in the area of political ethics for my graduate degree, and have to concur with renowned experts, academicians in this country, that in order to retain and gain and earn the public's trust, one has to be above reproach. That includes not to give any appearance of impropriety, and to avoid that at all costs. I believe, as I have strongly felt 4 years ago, that there should really be no council committees involving developers that are, or applicants who are major contributors to campaigns, and let staff deal with that. And then the council as a whole can make the decision, but at least I have to say, though, that even though contributions are public, people don't read them. People don't go through 60, 80 pages or even 10 pages to see who contributed how much to whom. People don't do that. Not even the press does it. So we have no way of finding out who contributes how much to whom. And it's really in the best interest of the community not to give the impression of impropriety, even if there is none, and let staff deal with that and make a recommendation to the council. So my recommendation would be not to establish an ad hoc committee.
Okay, that's the motion. Ms. Irwin?
Well, I do agree with the mayor with a lot of the things he said. Unfortunately, if Councilmember Gillette's not available and Councilmember Glancy and myself are not available, then the only 2 people that would be available for that committee are you and Councilmember Bildo-Lapena. It doesn't sound like she's interested.
Dr. Clancy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask Mr. Mitnick again exactly on what he thinks the benefit of council members on this committee would be, what it would accomplish that staff can't do, and if he, in his professional opinion as a city manager really thinks it would be of benefit to the community to have this ad hoc committee.
Okay. Again, council, it's your prerogative whether or not you want to have this committee, but the benefit is an opportunity for staff to sit down with council and talk through issues in much more detail than we are able to do here on the dais in a public meeting of this nature. It's not a question of what we can't do. Staff can certainly go forward and do the work as we have been for the past several years, but it's been our experience with these larger projects and more involved projects, there is value in getting council input along the way. And again, it would just be a sounding board as we do with the Capital Facilities Committee. There are no decisions or actions taken by the committee, and then the recommendations would come back to the full council. So the short answer is staff can live with whatever council decides. It's not necessarily going to impact any of the projects in terms of slowing them down. I am concerned that we may not get as good a quality of projects as a result, but we can go forward either way. Thank you.
Let me just point out to the council some of the things that, first, just put in your mind's eye the size of the auto mall on Thousand Oaks Boulevard. We're not dealing with a small parcel of property. Second, some of the things that we're looking at in dealing with are parking, landscaping, signage, design, and other related issues. We just had a discussion about a consent item on the size of signs at your local burger stand for drive-through. And I just asked the council to weigh that versus the auto mall and a pretty significant project that's going to come in front of the council and the value of having some feedback. The other option for the council is, since we don't seem to have everybody that's involved, is I just throw out is you might want to consider you know, what I chose to do, and that's simply not take the contribution from somebody you're working on a committee with. So that's up to the individual council members. But I don't know. We can. It's just whatever the pleasure of the council can be on this. Yeah, we do have a motion on the floor, which is not to authorize an ad hoc committee, essentially. Dr. Clancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can have a second comment. I've expressed my concern before about the health of our auto mall, only in that it's a major contributor to our sales tax revenues. We don't have development dollars coming in still. I'm somewhat offended by the inference that we have perhaps one or two members of the council who really are concerned with ethics, and perhaps the other 3 or 4 not so. I understand what the appearance of wrongdoing is. I understand that very completely. I don't think that should stop us from doing the business of the council. I think part of the business of the council is to ensure that we get the very best product we can get. And if we have to take a risk in so doing, I'm certainly willing to do so. But I think it's very important. It's a very important project. And I will volunteer to serve on the ad hoc committee, so I will not support the motion.
Okay, and I'll do it too. Any further discussion on that item? Okay, so the motion is to not form a committee. So it appears that we have 2 people willing to do it. So if you think it's a good general idea that council will continue to do the work of the city, then you'd want to register a no vote on that. Okay. Any final comments? Make the motion.
No, the final comment, well, yes, the final comment is actually that there isn't any accusation that others are unethical. This is about the bigger picture of the public trust, and the public trust can be attained through avoiding an appearance of impropriety, even if there is none. That is exactly what I said. that is, in this day and age, we do have a lot of trouble with resident citizens in this country being completely dissatisfied with their government, and the lack of public trust, of course, is a big contributor to that. We have a wonderful opportunity to restore the public's trust, which was discussed at our council goal session last month. And the public, as data has shown and statistics have shown, does not look kindly upon elected officials, be they local or federal, who take a lot of money or accept a lot of money from any given entity, and then, of course, vote on any projects that they have. I mean, that is simply something that residents, citizens don't like. And that is really what hurts the erosion and contributes to the erosion of the public trust. And it is my effort, my goal, truly, to restore some of the public trust. And again, with my final comments, encourage my colleagues to join me in that. And the council is fully able to continue to do its work it was elected to do, with or without a council committee. It's really not necessary. We have had quality projects in the past. We will continue to do so with staff's recommendations. Staff works very hard on various projects, and they do a wonderful job and a quality job. So those are my final comments, and you may call for the vote.
Ms. Irwin.
I'm not going to be supporting that motion. I just felt uncomfortable myself doing it, but if we have other council members that are willing to serve, I also want to reiterate what Mr. Mitnick said. Nobody's going to be voting on anything as a council committee. It really is more of a sounding board, and I do think that the committee process worked well for the Oaks Mall, so I won't be supporting that.
Also point out, just for public information, that it's not uncommon that if a contribution is received by an elected official and then an issue would come up 2 or 3 years later that you would not necessarily know about, and then if you look at the voting record, the elected official actually voted no on that. So I don't know how you reconcile that either, a no vote. So I've seen that a few times myself. So it's really hard to reach any kind of definitive conclusion on some of these issues. And but the appearance, that's the issue that we're really talking about. But I think we can do the work of the city, do the business of the folks, and at the same time reconcile any perceived issues of propriety and campaign finance. Okay, now we're really going to give Ms. Bill-Pena the last word here.
Okay, if this is the final word, again, it is at council discretion. You may choose to do whatever you like. And again, this is coming from someone who only has 4 years experience, not 12 or 16, but who has strived to really try to restore the public trust and examining and researching this, going through all of the literature that is out there. I cannot really compress everything in just 30 seconds or a minute. It's very difficult to do, not when you write a book on political ethics. But anyhow, that being said, I, of course, would have liked if my colleagues had joined me in that, but there are differing opinions, and there will always be differing opinions. And I am calling for a vote on not having a council committee.
Okay, vote please.
The motion fails 1-4.
All right. Mr. Gillette, since you're not going to serve on the committee, could you at least make a motion, do something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the staff recommendation that the formation of the council ad hoc committee, and that the 2 council members involved be the mayor and Dr. Glancy.
All right, thanks for that clarification. That way council can, by virtue of the vote, approve the committee recommendations, which is exactly what we're going to do. All right, the motion is for Dr. Clancy and myself to serve on the Oaks Mall Committee. I'm sorry, Auto Center. Yeah.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I suggest in your work, too, that we've had such success over the years engaging some of our village elders.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and because they're there, they understand it. They were there when the cattle were grazing down at that end of Thousand Oaks Boulevard, and they understand it all from the very beginning, so.
And I would just point out that by virtue of council committee, that means that the meetings are agendized, they're generally held at City Hall, they're open for public participation and comment, there's minutes taken. It's about as open and transparent process as the community would want, and so if we really want to shine the light of day on what the workings of the city is, the very best way to do it is actually to formalize it in a committee process where the community is invited and everybody has an opportunity for input. Okay. Any further comments on Mr. Gillette's motion? Yes. Ms. Billy-DePayne.
Thank you. Since you had suggested earlier that anybody who is up for election next year perhaps consider not taking contributions for the auto mall, would that apply to you, Mr. Glancy?
You know what?
You suggested it.
It's an out of order request, and I would refer you to our council norms with respect to even going into that direction.
But you suggested that yourself.
Yeah, I wasn't speaking on any individual council member, so that is an out of order question. Okay. Any further comment?
No. Call a question.
Okay. Let's vote.
I'm sorry, could you revote again? Motion carries 4-1.
All right, that is approved. And that completes the departmental reports. Redevelopment Agency, we have none. Committee and Commission Board reports. Item 11A is the Senior Adult Master Plan, Council on Aging. And Mr. Silberberg is going to provide the report on that. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Fox, council members, and City Manager Mitnick. My name is Mel Silberberg. I'm a commissioner with the Council on Aging, and I'm pleased to be joined tonight by the 7 members of the commission. And when I call their name, I appreciate they'd be recognized. Tom Dukoski, Susan Poprock, Harry Norkin, Martin Shentis, Jean Borghi, and Jim Searden. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present our recommendations for development of an outreach and senior adult master plan to meet the current and projected needs of Thousand Oaks senior adults. We recommend that the City Council direct the Council on Aging to conduct outreach, facilitate a needs assessment, and prepare a senior adult master plan for the City of Thousand Oaks. Our members have over 200 years of collective experience and 45 years of higher education in project and strategic planning, business plan development, needs assessment, preparation, and other related activities in senior community, which we believe uniquely qualifies us for this task. The City of Thousand Oaks has always been in the forefront of programs for senior adults, and once again, the City Council has demonstrated the leadership needed for the vision of the next decade and beyond for the senior community. Tonight, we will describe some of the key outreach activities that will be used as building blocks to assist us in preparing a needs assessment and developing a senior adult master plan. We will answer any questions you may have and request council approval. Our 2005 senior survey indicated that there was limited awareness of the Council on Aging and its products, and City Council challenged the Council on Aging to find ways to improve outreach to the community. By increasing our outreach, it offers the opportunity to gather information to create a needs assessment for the City of Thousand Oaks senior adult population. Outreach activities will be used to provide information to community seniors, obtain a greater survey response, identify needs, and prioritize strategies. By conducting surveys during on-site outreach visits to senior venues, larger amounts of data will be procured over time, and this will assist in preparing an in-depth needs assessment. The needs assessment will include current and future seniors and consideration of the emerging baby boomer challenge. By far, the biggest challenge is to understand, identify, and plan for the needs of the emerging senior population due to baby boomers aging and their impact on communities. This challenge is shared by all local, state, and federal agencies. We are clearly breaking new ground in order to make a difference and lead the way for senior adults in our community. Recently, the Council on Aging formed an outreach subcommittee, which has been meeting regularly with representatives from the Global Senior Adult Center to develop a plan which resulted in the outline of this program. The key objectives or mission of the committee is to, 1, reach more seniors in the community, 2, communicate available city senior services, and 3, obtain information from the senior adult population. Information obtained through in-person surveys and Q&A interaction will assist us in identifying current and future needs of senior adults. This objective also meets council goals to continue city's commitment to senior services. A focus group made up of interested senior adults and emerging baby boomers in the community will be formed to analyze data and brainstorm ideas to develop and implement the master plan. The centerpiece of our outreach program is a speakers bureau made up of commissioners of the Council on Aging using a uniform presentation script at selected approved senior sites. During our visits to these sites, we will conduct an in-person 2007 senior survey and question and answer period to yield additional input on needs. Audiences will also be encouraged to participate and join a senior focus group. Our presentations at senior venues may also include guest speakers on subjects such as disaster planning and the City Emergency Response Team, CERT. We'll also distribute Council on Aging, Global Center information and other senior services literature of interest during these visits. We have brought some samples, handouts for you, and the city clerk has passed bags out to council members. Another key element of our outreach plan is the development of an enhanced senior services web pages. The website gives those seniors who use the internet greater access to the Council on Aging products, such as the 2006 Senior Services Directory, and information on senior community events, including the Global Senior Center. Seniors will also be able to use the website to communicate their kudos, concerns, and needs through an interactive survey. The outreach program will benefit considerably by continuing development of our relationship with the Global Senior Adult Center. A number of actions are already underway to increase outreach. The Council on Aging, for example, has moved the mid-month workshop to Global Senior Adult Center and hosts guest speakers on popular subjects, which has attracted a larger audience at those meetings. In summary, Council on Aging is requesting City Council approval of an outreach plan including Speakers Bureau, preparation of needs assessment, and development of a senior adult master plan as presented. The implementation of the plan after development is anticipated to be a multi-year effort. The plan will also include appropriate performance measures to enable us to assess our progress towards program goals, and this assessment will be included in the annual report to Council. We thank you for the opportunity to discuss this vital senior services program and for your interest in the senior adult community. I would now be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir, for your comments and all your work, and we appreciate that. Ms. Irwin?
Yeah, Mr. Silverberg, I wanted to thank you and the Council on Aging. You do a tremendous amount of work, and that you're willing to take on the master plan. That's very exciting. One of the things I was curious about is we had a speaker earlier that talked about expanding the senior center, and here you're discussing assessing future needs of seniors. Have you looked at that at all, or will that be part of looking into that? Will that be part of the master plan?
Well, we haven't discussed that specifically, but I believe that from some discussions that we've had during our outreach committee meetings, and the Global Center director was there, it was clear that they're going to be, as the community grow, as the demographics proceed over the next number of years, next 10 years, there will have to be expansion, but we will work with them to see how the needs that we determine, that we find from our needs assessment, how that blends in with the needs that they may have. In fact, do they merge?
Thank you, and thank you again for all your effort.
Mr. Gillette.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. And to all of you, thank you so much for what you do. I just wanted to go back to that, when Mrs. Irwin commented about the speaker talking about expansion of the Global Center. One of the things that's in the offing, of course, is with this, the expansion, the building of the second gym at the teen center, and the proximity of the two, that it will be significantly underutilized during the day, which is the time when the highest use is needed. And to get dual use out of those two facilities, the intergenerational benefits of that, that's kind of exciting. But I also think that the city of Thousand Oaks is 55 square miles in size, which makes it a pretty sizable city area-wise, and something that we haven't talked about for a long time. And I would hope that in your process, in your deliberations, the establishment of a senior center in the Newbury Park area. Given the amount of mobile homes, older housing stock, and what have you, I think we know more than just anecdotally that we have a large portion of our senior community that are in that area, and sometimes just the thought of the distance, of commuting the distance to the current senior center on Jans is somewhat intimidating, may call them off, but yet the need is still there. So the opportunities that what you're proposing here are virtually endless for our senior community, and I think this community has shown historically that we're going to do the right thing, and we're going to support these efforts, and we will take an excellent program and improve it, as long as we've got people like yourselves working that hard on it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment.
Okay.
Thank you for the comments, please.
Appreciate that. Ms. Bilda Pena, did you want to put a motion on the table?
Actually, I had a question for Mr. Silverberg.
Right.
Good evening, Mr. Silverberg. Thank you very much for your contribution to the community. In your needs assessment study, will you include anything that is medical-related, health field-related, in terms of seniors needing help with drug prescription plans or anything like that?
Nominally, that has been looked at at the county level. I believe that if that type of information comes in, we'll have to review it and assess it and determine how we might deal with it and recommend that. It, generally speaking, certainly the senior concerns, service provider, caregiver information, that all of that will naturally be part of our survey, and in fact, we're going to be involved and have those people involved on our visits to the senior venues. As that information presents itself on healthcare, I think we'll have to assess it and put forth what recommendations or what in fact that information is telling us. We'll have to look at it.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I read in the paper not too long ago that in the city of Ventura, I believe, may have been a different city, the seniors were having problems with the conversion and the transition with the prescription health care plans and whatnot, and prescription drug plans. And there were speakers from various companies that were invited and confused the seniors even further, to the point where the DA is now wanting to investigate. So that is the sort of information that I wanted to find out whether, I'm sure you're going to get that feedback from seniors once you conduct your assessment, and are you prepared to deal with that?
Yes, we're prepared to deal with it. I would also mention that during our monthly programs, monthly broadcasts, we do have information that's brought forth from service providers and healthcare professionals and things like that. So we're constantly addressing that during our programs, and we'll continue to address it, but we will certainly have to look carefully at the information that comes in.
Thank you. And with that, I am prepared to make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
All right, Ms. Bill de la Pena moves the recommendations 1 and 2. Discussion on the motion? Okay, vote please.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, that is approved. Thank you, Mr. Silverberg. We appreciate it.
Thank you
very much. All right, that moves us to item 12. That's council issues and recommendations. These are follow-up reports. I'd ask the council just please give us a brief update on these items. 12A1 is the California Association of Sanitation Agencies, CASA conference. Dr. Clancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually did have the pleasure of attending the CASA meeting. It was very, very interesting. There was a great deal of discussion talking about biosolid disposal. Those who have watched what's going on in the country find that more and more sites for disposal are drying up, if you will. And so technology is being looked at as an alternate way of dealing with the problem. In England, Crossness, England, they've got a sludge-powered generator since 1998 that develops just shy of 6 megawatts of green energy. And in Beckton, England, there's a sludge-powered generator that develops enough green energy for 7,000 homes. In Germany, they're talking about incinerating the biosolids rather than spreading them on farmland, and that plan is also being pursued in Switzerland and Japan. United States has 170 sewage sludge incinerators, only 2 of which are in California, which is not a surprise. But incinerating the biosolids, there's an 80 to 95% reduction in mass. So there's just a whole lot of benefit. It'll be interesting to see what research continues in this arena. Also, they brought to light the Inland Empire Utility Agency, which erected 2 33,000 square foot buildings that are LEEDs Platinum qualified or certified, and the construction came in at a lower fee for standard construction. One of the reasons they got such a lower construction fee is because they took everything off the shelf and they used prefab buildings, pull-ups or push-ups. But anyway, it was very exciting. Research in air regulations, or a lot of air regulation stuff. Diesel regulation is going to really come down hard in the next 10 years. So it'll be interesting to see what we do in its stead. Anyway, it was a very good conference. I found a great deal that was extremely interesting, and I recommend it to anyone. And please accept my verbal report.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Clancy. Received and filed. That moves us to item 13. That's the city manager's report. Mr. Mitnick.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the first item is a verbal update here on what's we're referring to as the Next G above-ground installation process, if you will. This was brought to staff's attention about the time the agenda was being put together, so I want to provide an update of what's going on, and there will be staff follow-up, some more research and so on. But it appears that there is a company in California with the name of NextG Networks, and they're in the business of constructing wireless facilities for the cell phone companies. And they're very aggressively putting in above-ground lines throughout the state. And we sort of, as staff, stumbled across this last week. On May 8th, NextG applied for encroachment permits to install overhead lines going over the 23 freeway at Hillcrest. And they applied for these encroachment permits through the city. And we also learned at that time that they had applied to Caltrans to install overhead lines over and across the 101 freeway at various locations, including Hampshire, Lynn Road, Windy Drive. But it wasn't clear, will these be new lines or will they go on existing overhead lines? For the 101, it appears that they will just add lines to existing overhead lines. If you drive the 101 every day, you probably are oblivious to the fact that there are some above ground lines. I had the Public Works Director driving out there to show me, so they're out there. What was a little bit odd here is there was virtually no city involvement or consultation by NextG with respect to these lines going in over the Caltrans right-of-way. In addition to all of this, NextG has applied for 8 city encroachment permits to underground conduit at multiple locations. At least 4 of these would require entitlements to add above-ground facilities such as antenna, light poles, equipment boxes, etc. It might sound familiar to council. This is what the cell site companies are doing throughout the community, or trying to do, and they're having a very difficult time of it. The bottom line here is we're talking about more above-ground lines. A substantial amount, we're not quite sure yet. Here are what our concerns are as staff as we're trying to figure all this out. We feel that this is a piecemeal approach, very similar to what we experienced early on with Verizon when it was doing its FTTP process. Verizon did ultimately submit a global plan for the community, and we were able to work through with those issues with Verizon. And that process, by the way, is going very, very well. Verizon is installing their system throughout the community with minimal complaints, so hats off to them. So going back to the concern about a piecemeal approach, we will not issue any encroachment permits until the city receives, until the city is able to provide authorization for the entire citywide project, again, similar to what we did with Verizon. We are going to make this company follow the same process that we make the wireless providers follow. So again, we're making the council and the community aware of this. We're asking NextG to go through the pre-application process with planning and public works. There are a number of entitlement issues that have to be resolved before we grant the encroachment permits. And staff, again, will do its due diligence and report back to council via memos and, if need be, at council meetings such as this. We will also work with Caltrans. I did contact Doug Failing to get information. He's our director of our area with Region 7. And if need be, we'll ask Mr. Failing to come here and address the council. He has expressed a tremendous willingness to work with the city and not do anything that would be detrimental to the city, so that's been very positive. We will also solicit, if need be, the support and assistance of Senator McClintock and Assemblymember Audra Strickland. And we are concerned as staff, too. This is an example of more and more of this stuff to come, to be a problem and a challenge for cities. So I just want to make council aware of that. That's really it. That's that. And then follow up from requests for public, none really for tonight. Legislative issues, the governor did release his what's called May revised budget. I won't get into details about that, but there appear to be impacts on cities, good or bad, we're not quite sure. The legislative action days are taking place later this week, and as we learn more, we'll share that information with council. Announcements, upcoming issues. I do want to point out for council, I have very good news to share with you. Earlier today, staff from the city and met with staff from the Alliance for the Arts and some of their representatives, and after 3 years of negotiations and hard work, we've reached a tentative agreement with the Alliance, and the details are still being worked out, but come July 1, the City of Thousand Oaks will no longer be in the general fund subsidy business of the Theaters Fund. 3 years of work and a very successful outcome there. By way of upcoming council meetings. Oh, by the way, on May 22nd, 23rd, Public Works will be having its open house, or whatever the proper name is, out at the Municipal Services Center. You can go to the city's website. It's a great opportunity to show off all the real cool equipment and stuff that Public Works has. And that's open to the public, 2 days. The next council meeting will be May 29th. There will be a study session on the proposed operating budget for the next 2 years, 07-08 and 08-09. There will be one public hearing dealing with following up on the Residents' Roundtable recommendation with respect to some changes to the code dealing with additions and alterations to existing townhomes and condos. The next council meeting after that will be June 12th, and that will be a significant meeting because council will be holding a public hearing on the proposed operating and CIP budgets. And that's it by way of city manager update. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mitnick, thanks very much. We have no closed session items tonight to discuss, and that brings us into adjournment. We're going to be adjourning tonight's meeting in honor and memory of 3 individuals. First, we are adjourning in honor of Ventura C. Torres, who is the father of our Public Works Administrative Secretary, Esther Marcelino. Mr. Torres passed away on April 14th. He's a resident of Manila and retired government employee. Mr. Torres is survived by 2 sons, Wilfredo and Manolo, and 1 daughter, Esther. And so our thoughts and prayers are with the Marcelino family. Also, we're adjourning in honor tonight of Barney F. Watson. Mr. Watson was the father of our Housing and Redevelopment Division Manager, Russ Watson. He retired from the Salk Institute, the medical research facility, in 1989 after 25 years as a plant engineer supervisor, working with many Nobel Prize-winning doctors and scientists, including Dr. Jonas Salk himself. He lived in San Diego and passed away in the home he built 55 years ago. Mr. Watson is survived by his wife of 59 years, Ramona, his children, Barbara, Eugene, and Russell. And Russ, our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family on the passing of your dad. Finally, I'm going to turn our third adjournment in memory to Mr. Gillette for his comments on the third person we're honoring tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The final adjournment tonight acknowledges the passing of retired Los Angeles City Fire Department Assistant Chief William T. Bill Bennett. Bill served 31 years with the Los Angeles City Fire Department. He was originally from West Virginia and moved to California after serving in the Navy. In 1965, he moved his family to Thousand Oaks, where he became very active in several community organizations, such as the Ventura County Grand Jury, the Community Leaders Club, and Neighborhood Watch. He and his wife, Marty, were 2 of the original founders of the Community Leaders Club at Cal Lutheran and its annual auction. He's survived by his wife, Marty. Marty is known to many people in the community, and her constant married companion and partner, Bill, have been seen throughout this community for so many years. Bill and Marty were married for 56 years. Their children are Sue, Nancy, Bonnie, and their son, Tom. Tom is currently the supervising sergeant of Ventura County Sheriff's Department Traffic Unit for the city of Thousand Oaks. Bill is one of those phenomenal individuals that brought so much quality to his life and so much joy to so many others, and he will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillette. And with that, we will adjourn to our regular city council meeting for May 29th, 2007. We're adjourned.